All right, welcome to the September 18th analytics section meeting. James, you have the first point.
Yeah, I just wanted to say great job, everyone. Couple of huge milestones in the last week. I guess I just need to go in more PTO. First, customer onboarded to product analytics and the .com. Your GitLab.com is instrumented and events are flowing. It looks like the number of events is ticking up this morning as Dennis increases the percentage. So great job, everyone. I know it was a huge amount of work to get to this point, and it's great to see some of that data flowing through. So thanks. Basti, it looks like you have an interesting comment that could use voicing over.
Yeah. So first of all, awesome. I think this is really a good step forward, especially also for testing things and getting feedback and everything. To be able to kind of get a bit more of an understanding of whether our GitLab.com instrumentation is working as expected, I created a size chart just to have like a comparison between what do we collect with our normal snowplow, like the old snowplow setup, versus then what we can see in our new setup. Because I guess in the end, the numbers should overlap, because we just have the same snowplow SDK running 2 times, sending off the same page view, for example, 2 times. Yeah, so that should give us a number over the next days and weeks to just compare against and see if there's anything, if our numbers look right, the ones in the analytics stack, or if they're wrong. Yeah.
Definitely. I'll check out that chart, and then once we get the 100% going, then we can have a really accurate count of what's going on. So it'll be good to kind of reconcile that. Yeah, again, I mentioned it on Slack, but I'll just say for the recording or anyone who watches it, I'm really happy that we got to this point. So congrats everyone on the work, and looking forward to making more progress to get to beta and eventually GA. So the journey continues, but we're making some good progress. I can give a little bit of along those lines. I can get a bit of a quick overview in a way to think quick on my feet, because I need to provide a good update in terms of what's left in terms of finishing up the experiment release, as James had requested. Not to call you out, but just I'm holding myself accountable to it. So this is me practicing for that async update, basically. So what's exactly left to get to finish up experiment, get officially into beta, and then eventually GA as well. This speaks to, obviously, of course, our product development in terms of what we're doing and polishing and building upon with Dashboard Designer and Visualization Designer, but also what we have to do practically to kind of get this going. And then as I spoke about that, I just thought of another thing. So just excuse me while as everyone knows, I'm super good at typing and talking at the same time. So I'm just going to type first and then talk later. So a couple of things definitely on the infrastructure side to pay attention to. Logging and monitoring is something that is both useful for us to better understand how everything's working, health and service status wise. And so we can have that feeds into, on one hand, cost and performance analysis to be able to figure out how much does it cost to run the infrastructure, how can we optimize that in any way, not to over index on it, but basically are we running as efficient, or are we running efficiently as we get all this data from all of our dog fooded projects from customers as we start to onboard more of them. .com, as that has the widest availability of events to kind of test things with. And so not only is it beneficial for us in terms of visibility, monitoring, and pricing and all that kind of stuff, but it's also required for what I'll get down to further in point F, which is kind of what infrastructure needs to have confidence and to be able to approve our services for beta and GA, and really for them to be able to manage the services for us or be frontline support. They need logging and monitoring. And so I'm evaluating options for that, project runways and infrastructure effort to help kind of streamline that. I spoke to John Jarvis, who's a staff SRE as well, to kind of see what our options are. What is the easiest thing for us to do to get logging and monitoring going as we are now versus in the future when we're in an infrastructure managed environment. So all of these are related. So that's a long way to say is that visibility into how everything's performing will be useful, but also for us, but also required for us to really get approved to be running in production in a general availability capacity. It's also useful for us for beta as well, just because we want to have some confidence that we have n number of customers being able to opt in, that we have that visibility to see if things are going to become unhealthy, or if we need to turn off that toggle to kind of slow down the pace of people opting in, and to really just have that baseline confidence of, okay, this is ready for people to really start using, because we'll start getting into areas of unpredictability in terms of how are they going to use it. Are they just going to try to, I'm sure we're familiar with some customer incidents in the past where they've managed to DDoS us in some ways and things like that. So we definitely want to have a little bit more confidence there. Getting into the cost and performance analysis part of that, a thought I had since Basti reminded me with the Sisense chart, I was curious what the level of effort would be to start importing previous data, just so we can kind of get that scale of data and see how much that's going to cost to like run over time, so we can start getting into the conversation of, well, what is our data retention policy going to look like? Because if a customer stores X amount of events over so many months or years, how much is that going to cost us, and how do we kind of shape our policy around that? It's a signal, of course. We can always kind of just start with James, we've been talking about it, like start with just like a stricter policy, and then it's easier to loosen over time. But it'll be good to have that information. But Basti, you had a sub point there.
Yeah, I don't think it should be kind of prohibitive to, from a effort point of view, to import those. I think it would be restricted to the page views, because events just look completely different from a structure point of view, and then importing them, they just wouldn't be usable. But page views, I don't think there should be a problem with those. And those are all in S3 in an S3 bucket or buckets. The events from the last years. So I think it's just down to kind of writing a script and finding an efficient way to send those into ClickHouse. Yeah, so the S3 imports, I guess, there would be an option, and then we can modify them slightly so that they adhere to our structure. But yeah, if it's really helpful to kind of understand, especially performance for, I don't know, years of, or at least months of data, then let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think on one hand, it'd be interesting just to, because we have data basically dating back to when we first introduced snowplow tracking, right? So like that's also pretty interesting to be able to kind of test out performance of like those cubes start to complain, or ClickHouse start to complain once you start going back far enough and things like that. But yeah, I think it'd be really interesting, and perhaps an experiment that we can run to kind of just see, can we import it directly from S3, and then if we have to remap, we can do that, whether that's before or after it gets into ClickHouse. But whatever is the easiest way to get there. But yeah, I think it'd be something to look into. I think I might have created an issue for that, but I have to double check. So I guess that'll be the action item there.
If not, I can create one, or you just tag me on it, and then we'll make sure that we can prioritize it.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, kind of going along in terms of what else is left in terms of like the main points for getting to beta, at least, is like really we want to get these running in the infrastructure managed environments. We're still technically running in the cloud sandbox, and while we're not hosting red data and transiting it, like ultimately, and we're very close, because we want to be running in infrastructure managed environments. So Pierre is, I think, actually waiting for me to provide some information so we can get a pre and staging environment set up. And then once those look good, then we can move on with production and then figure out how we'll do the switch off from running on the cloud sandbox cluster to the new one. The good news is that they should be connected to the same ClickHouse cluster. So it's just a matter of changing endpoints in terms of the onboarding and the cube services and things like that. So that's, of course, definitely a requisite step for getting us out to beta and GA. furthermore, we have a couple more things in terms of like the logistical side of things, in terms of what customers are going to need to have visibility into. And James, you can correct me if I'm getting this bucketing wrong, but usage quota will be interesting for us just to also see, like, have visibility into beyond just looking into the raw data, like how much usage we're having, but also to really make it effective for people joining in the beta and to have an idea as we kind of get toward announcing pricing and things like that, to see whether it's viable for them or not. So really the usage information should be visible in the beta, in the MVC, whatever MVC fashion we're kind of working towards. And then the billing side is really connecting that information to the fulfillment workflow to make sure that we are able to build them in some way, which will definitely be something where we need to figure out before we can actually say we're generally available. So did I get that right, James?
That's all true. Yes.
Cool. That's about it. I already touched on the readiness review. It is the process has changed, but it's more iterative now. It's more streamlined. So that's my next focus for this week, is to make sure that we kind of get officially marked as experiment. I am technically running the live clusters, and this is on recording, but on semi-unreleased code. So I appreciate everyone's patience with that, but we'll get that sorted very soon. But that's pretty much everything that's going on from my side as far as what I think needs to get done for beta and GA. Does anyone have any questions around that at all? All right. Well, that's all for the agenda. Did anyone have anything else they wanted to talk about? Cool. Well, great work, everyone. I will go back to seeing if I blew up a cluster because I turned on the fire hydrant of events for .conf to 50%, but it's good to see everybody. Hope you have a good rest of your Mondays and week, and then see you in the next call.